and welcome to the Not Only Carrots cooking show. Today I'll be making for you the walnut patties from page 60 of my brand new cookbook, No, We Don't Only Eat Carrots, Plant-Based Food for Humans. Walnut patties are a perfect meat substitute. They have the lovely flavour of the mushrooms, but also the texture of the wheat gluten flour in there, and it gives a lovely bite and very similar to meat. So let's get started. The walnut patties are actually done in two sections. We have both the broth and the patties themselves, which will expand in the broth as they cook, and then we turn the broth into a gravy at the end. So we'll start with our broth. You'll need to have a large saucepan and add to that 1.5 litres of water. That's about 6 cups. I've already done that. We'll add to that 1 large diced onion and 8 button mushrooms sliced, 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, which also adds a lovely flavour in there and adds to the brown colour of the gravy. We have some salt. I like to put in 1.5 teaspoons, but you can put in less if you prefer. I've tried less before and it just isn't as good. A teaspoon of rapadura, which is evaporated cane juice. You can use brown sugar in place of this if you wish. You can just find this in the baking section, usually on the top shelf in the shopping centre. Then we have 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, which is 2 cloves of garlic. I make mine heaped because I like garlic. And also 1/4 cup of coconut cream. If you can find a brand like I did that's 100% coconut, you can avoid the emulsifiers and stabilisers that they add, and it doesn't need to be sweetened either. All right, so stir together those ingredients. And what we're going to do now is put it on the stove over a medium-high heat. We're going to bring it to the boil, but the second it comes to the boil, whack it down to a low heat because coconut cream separates if it gets too hot. It will still taste good, but it won't look as nice. So I'll put this on the stove now and I'll come straight back and show you how to make the patties. Now for our patties, we'll need a large mixing bowl and we'll add in 1.5 cups of gluten flour. This is not gluten-free flour, this is gluten flour. In America, sometimes they call it vital wheat gluten flour, so we'll add in 1.5 cups of that. Along to that, 1 teaspoon of salt and 3/4 cup of chopped walnuts or pecan nuts. Some people say pecans. You can do that in a blender, you can pulse it, or in the Thermomix as well. Plus 1 onion diced. Now we'll add in 1 cup of rice milk. I managed this week to find brown rice milk at the shops and it was unsweetened, and that was very exciting. So we'll add in 1 cup on top there. Add my spoon over at the stove. Here we go, stir that in. If you want to get your hands in there, that's perfectly fine. Kids love to get their hands dirty with this recipe. Now you may find that not all of the onion will stay in the patties. That's not a problem. Any leftover bits and pieces just goes in your broth, so nothing's wasted. While I think of it, make sure you heat up your sandwich maker or on the stove, make sure you get a pan heating up so that you can cook these patties. So I'll plug mine in now. Okay, now careful not to overmix because if you overmix gluten, it can get too chewy, but you do want to make sure as much of that gluten flour as possible is in your patties. Okay, so you'll be left with a bit of a ball like this. Got a little bit of onion that doesn't want to stay. And this divides into 8 large patties. You can do smaller ones if you've got kids and they want to have cute little baby patties, that's fine, but today I will show you the big mama ones. All right, so pretty much you just cut it in half and then half and then half. All right. Now when you're using a sandwich maker, it's pretty cool because you don't actually have to worry about shaping the patties as much. Oh, this onion doesn't want to stay in today. Okay, when you put them in the sandwich maker, you just press it down and they flatten down, which is pretty cool. I got 8 yet? 2, 4, 6, 8. I do. Okay, sandwich maker's ready. So, put them in like this. Most sandwich makers, you should be able to do them all in one go. And press them down and that will actually flatten them out for you. You need to cook them until they're brown on both sides. And I will get these extra bits of onion that fell out and they'll go in my broth. While we're waiting for those patties to cook, I wanted to tell you about getting a skinny spatula as a vegan. They're really, really handy. Because they're so skinny, you can slip right underneath your patties, or if you're making pancakes and they don't get pushed, you know, sometimes you cook a pancake and you push it with the spatula and it kind of concertinas, you know. These are really handy because they don't tend to do that. So these are very, very good for vegans. Check out, we have a video coming actually with some 7 kitchen tools that vegans should get. It makes cooking a lot easier. Now, if you are cooking with your sandwich maker and you try to lift up the lid, it should come up quite easily, like that did this time. Some of the patties, like the ones in the middle, don't want to cook as quickly. So what I do is I take off the ones that are already browned, usually into the bowl, like this. Those ones can go in here, and then I'll spread these ones out again and let them cook a little longer. Get those bits of onion. And once the broth is boiling, we can pop them in. If your broth, as I said before, if it has already come to the boil and it's on a low temperature, when you do put the patties in, you want it to be a higher temperature initially, just so that you can make sure it's at a good heat, because otherwise those patties will take too long to cook. Okay, my broth is now boiling. As you can see, I did have a lid on it to speed that process up. I will bring that temperature down so that it doesn't separate. So now it's down to around medium. Okay, one at a time, drop each of those patties in. Careful not to burn your fingers because they are hot. Ouch. Little by little. Ooh, that's hot. All right. And as I said before, get all those leftovery bits and pieces, pop them in. They now can cook as is. You do not have to cover them with the lid, but if you prefer a slightly runnier gravy, you can. I prefer to leave them on their own. I cook it at a medium to medium-low temperature. You want it to have a decent amount of heat, but not too much because you will get that separation. But if it's too low, once your patties are removed, you'll notice that they're kind of soft, and they shouldn't have a soft texture. They should have a slight chewiness about them. So if you just check that when you take them out, you may have to cook them a little longer if your heat is too low. But after you've done it a couple of times, you'll work out your stove. So it's a medium to medium-low with a decent amount of bubble in there. So I'll leave mine on medium for now, and I'll keep checking back. If it gets too wild, I'll bring it down to slightly lower temperature. So half an hour now, guys. Once they're done, we will add in some cornflour and water and create the gravy that goes over the top. All right, we'll see you soon. All right, now our walnut patties have been cooking for that full half an hour. I've checked the texture and they're nice and chewy, which is what we want. Now we need to thicken up the broth, and this will become our lovely mushroom gravy that will go over the top. So I have 2 tablespoons of cornflour, which is cornstarch in the States, and we'll add the equal amount of water, so another 2 tablespoons on top of that, and we'll stir that together to create a thin paste. Don't be tempted to add it to the broth before you've done this, because it will just lump and it won't thicken it at all. Cornflour is a little bit tricky to get into a paste, but work at it and it does dissolve. Stir that in. All of a sudden it just works. So there we go, that's good. Now the trick when you add cornflour to the broth is to stir it straight away, but don't stir too vigorously, otherwise you might break up those patties. But you're going to stir it in, and you're going to keep the heat on low, medium-low for about 3 minutes so that the grittiness in the cornflour in the broth goes away, and you can just check that with your finger. So here we go. I'll pour this in now and stir straight away. Stir that around, combining it straight away so that you don't get any big chunky lumps of the cornflour. Okay, and that will just come back up again. Yep, that's bubbling again now. And roughly 2 to 3 minutes. Check it yourself, make sure the grittiness is gone. And once it thickens up, what you can do is actually serve that over the top of some nice mashed potatoes with some greens on the side or a salad. The patties also, if you had some leftovers and you didn't actually need to have them again, what you can do is get the patties and put them in your blender and pulse them, or in the Thermomix you can whiz them up on speed 5, and that creates a nice mince, and that's a great alternative in spaghettis and pastas. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this recipe today. I've enjoyed making it for you, and make sure you subscribe to our channel and click like. Share the video with a friend, perhaps someone who's not too sure how you can get something to taste similar to meat. This is a good recipe that fulfills that requirement, and we will see you soon with another show. Make sure you check out the links below as well for the cookbook and also some other cooking shows we have done. Plus we have some vegan information shows as well, answering some important questions about why we want to be a vegan, how you deal with people who disagree with your choice to be vegan, and so on. All right, guys, we'll see you soon with another show.